If you've been following my channel for any amount of time, you know that I have tons of experience on the YZ250X here and recently putting a lot of seat time on the 125X. I get asked all the time, what's the better bike for me to choose? In fact, while I was writing the script for this video, I had 3 separate people ask me within about 4 hours which bike they should get. So that's actually a really loaded question. There are just so many variables involved, but I'm gonna try and break things down for you in this video and hopefully help you decide which bike may be right for you. If you're new to this channel, just a little bit of background. This is my 2016 YZ250X and I have about 500 hours on it. And this, of course, is my new 2020 YZ125X. I currently have about 60 hours on it, which has been plenty to get a good feel for it and really feel comfortable comparing it to the 250 for you guys. Just for your reference, I'm 6 feet tall and 175 pounds. I run the stock suspension setup on both bikes and it seems to suit me very well. Let's start with the obvious facts. The 125 is about 20 pounds lighter. This may not seem like a big difference, but it's quite noticeable. The 125 is far easier to flick around in turns and lift in certain situations. However, both bikes are fairly light and handle in a very playful manner. The most common concern is whether or not the 125 has enough power. This is where it gets challenging to answer. Simply put, yes, the 125 has great power and at least for any riding I do, plenty to make it through whatever I've thrown at it. However, it's definitely a bit more difficult to unlock that power compared to the 250. Also, your weight will have an effect on how the 125 will feel. If you're pushing well over 200 pounds, I think maybe the 250 would be a better all-around bike. Height doesn't matter too much because the bikes are nearly geometrically the same. Although the 125 has very impressive bottom-end torque, you'll have to get familiar with slipping the clutch to keep the RPMs up in a lot of situations in order to prevent stalling and get the explosive power required to accelerate out of turns or up features. This, however, is what you should be doing anyway, controlling the power with the clutch, not modulating the throttle. To an extent, but that's a whole nother video. The 250 does a very good job lugging at low RPM and may be a better option for some newer riders, as it will be easier to ride if you're not quite familiar with using the clutch aggressively. This brings me to another point and probably the most important. Consider what your goal is with riding. What kind of riding do you want to do and what are your plans for progressing your skill set? If you're just out there to relax and putt along through a trail, the 250 may be a better option for you as it requires much less effort to ride fast and smooth. You can stay down lower in the RPM and lug it all day. You don't necessarily need to be slipping clutch through every turn or up every hill. Of course, it also has much greater potential to get out of control if you're not careful. If you're new to riding or even quite experienced and really want to dial in your technique, I think the 125 is a fantastic tool. It requires you to be precise, plan ahead, and stay aggressive. You have to be in the right gear, you oftentimes have to keep the revs high and heavily use the clutch. It will help you focus on riding aggressively and precisely as opposed to possibly promoting a certain laziness. Since getting the 125, my clutch skills and line choices have improved dramatically. When getting on a bigger bike like the Sherco 300, everything seems much easier now. With that said, I don't think the 125 isn't capable of being ridden leisurely either. It has plenty of power to get you flowing through some nice single track and even enough torque down low to push through some gnarly creeks. I've been very impressed with the bike. If you want to dual sport, the 250 is absolutely the way to go as the 125 doesn't have a very comfortable high cruising speed despite having 6 gears. The 5th gear on the 250, even geared down a tooth in the front, is substantially more usable for cruising roads. Now, maintenance. I was concerned about the 125 and having to rebuild it every 40 hours or less. Well, here we are at 60 hours and it still runs like a top. For the riding I do, mainly technical hard enduro type stuff, I'm able to lug it very low and work the clutch. This of course helps preserve the engine longer. I run Electron H-Series carb and Boyson rad valve on both bikes. These two things really help out the bottom end and I can confidently say that they are necessity items for my riding style. In addition to this, the Electron will ensure that your engine is receiving proper fueling, which is critical to engine longevity. If you're not sure what exactly the Electron carb does and how it works, there's a link in the description explaining it all. Please go to my website, BeRAD-products.com, and check these out. Email me if you have any questions. I'll probably open the 125 up at about 100 hours and throw a piston in. My 250, I've put well over 200 hours on a piston and rings and had 0 issues and minimal signs of wear on the cylinder. This is, of course, greatly due to how I ride. Low RPM, not revving it out, not holding it wide open in the sand all day, so these results will vary based on your riding style. The 250 in most cases will be a lower maintenance bike, but honestly, I wouldn't even factor this into making your decision. Both bikes require very little maintenance and will run for a very long time, provided you take care of them. For me personally, with where I live now and the stuff I ride, I'd pick the 125. It's by far the most fun and playful, and I also like going up some dumb stuff and confusing the hell out of people when they realize it's a small bore bike. It adds a challenging twist to climbs and obstacles and also makes you feel like a superhero when you're wringing its neck out in the single track. If I had to choose one of the two bikes as the best do-it-all, it would for certain be the 250. It's a great mix between bottom-end power for technical, peppy top-end for that fast flowy sand, and with that tall fifth gear, you can even dual sport it if you must. Since all of the riding that I do currently is purely for fun, I'd choose the 125 just because it's light, playful, and it adds a little bit of a challenging twist to help my skills progress. If you're a new rider and wanting to get into hard enduro type riding, it may pose as a frustration trying to ride the 125. But as mentioned, it will also be a great way for you to learn and improve. You can always do that on the 250 as well, of course. To sum things up, you've got to consider your current skill level and what you're using the bike for. I'd honestly be happy with either one because I know I can have a good time on any bike. I hope this video helps you decide. If you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing and giving it a like. Also, if you'd like to see the videos that were featured in this one, of course with more two-stroke sound, I've included the links to those in the description as well.